Today's IWF Connect session will cover some of the scanning and optimizing products offered by AikenControls. Featured in this session will be our nDepth 3D sensor technology and our nScanRip scanning optimizing platform. While we're waiting for others to join, we have a short video showing our nScanRip system in production. Following this intro video, we will dive a little deeper into these products and technologies. Lastly, we will open the floor for questions. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat area as we go along, and we'll try to answer those at the end. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to AikenControls. I'm Chris Aiken. I'm here today to show you a little bit about our nDepth sensor technology and also our nScanRip product that's based around that technology. So just to give you a little background, a little introduction to the nDepth sensor, AikenControls introduced this at IWF 2014, and we won the Challengers Award for this technology because this sensor, the nDepth sensor, is unique in that it's a full 3D color sensor. And how that's different from what you may have seen in the past with cameras is that in addition to having a color camera inside of each of the sensors, we also have a stereoscopic infrared sensor pair and an infrared projector. And what that allows us to do is to measure the distance away that the product is from the camera. So for each dot or pixel inside the camera, we know we have an X and a Y and a color information, but we also have an X and a Y and a Z now in the color information. So for every pixel, we know how far away the material was that we saw. Now that allows us to do some things that are traditionally difficult to do with just a standard color camera. It allows us to find the material on the background very easily because we know the board is taller than the conveyor. So we can filter out all of the background, which is very important in processing because you have dust and dirt and sawdust and all kinds of other sundry things that fall on the floor in the chain, which are difficult to remove in many cases. So that's easy to get rid of. And then we also can detect features in the board like weighing that has no color contrast, gouges or holes that don't appear any darker than the surrounding wood. Okay, so that's the core technology that we're using. Now the nDepth sensor can see about a 3 foot long, about a 2 foot wide area at the mounting height that they're at today. and we can compose those together in order to form a very large virtual camera. So in the test frame that we have here today, we have 4 sensors. We can measure up to 12-foot long material. But normally in production, we would have 6. So we could go from your shortest material up to 16, actually a little over 16, with about 17 is what we can see in production. And you can take the board and present it laterally. So if you notice, this board here is just resting against the pin stop. So if you've got a conveyor system today that's bringing material to in front of your rip saw, it's very easy to add this frame over top and have a full rip system. We can also do double-sided. So we have systems in production now that are doing double-sided at about 25 boards a minute. So what we do is we bring the board up, we shoot one image, we flip the board, let it come back, shoot the other image, and now we can process both sides of the board with top-only sensors, which is really nice. Okay? Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing with this. So I'm going to come over, I'm going to scan the board. If you look at the board here, you see that we have some defects on it. We've got the knots, we've got some little pin knots, we've got this coloration, and we got a little hole here, pinhole here, maybe a few knots there. And what we're going to do is we're going to scan that board with the sensor array. So as you see on the screen, if you compare the board to the defects that were detected by the scanner, you will see that they're basically the same. Okay? We saw the large knots, the coloration, some of the pin knots, so forth and so on. And now we also can, just to have, so you have a look, you can see that we're capturing an image from each of the sensors. Okay, and we can support up to 8 sensors. Normally we have only 6 in the full system. And then we compose those sensors together and merge those sensors together to form an image of the board. Okay? All right? Now we do all of that, in this case, for InScan RIP, to be able to pass that information to the optimizer. And the optimizer allows us to create a solution for this board that's considering not just the width of the product, but also lengths. And in addition to that, also quality. So you don't have to have defect-free items in your cutting order. You can define a quality to allow certain kinds of defects and certain kinds of pieces, if you want, to improve your overall yield. So that's what's called quality RIP. So what we have in InScan RIP is a 2-dimensional quality RIP optimizer that's taking the defects from both sides of the board and calculating the best solution for your product. So we also have some other things. You know, we have the ability to do loads, to keep track of load information for payables purposes. So we have tally scenario built into InScan RIP. We have the ability to sort strips and manage bundles or packs coming out of the InScan RIP if you're pulling the strips and making bundles. And printing technologies for sorting and lots of other goodies along the way. So hopefully we've generated some questions that you'd like to ask, and we appreciate you coming by. Hang tight, and we'll talk to you soon in the question and answer section.
Okay, so with that, we're going to open up for Q&A. If you have any questions, drop those in the box below. And while we wait for questions to come in, Chris, one question that everybody seems to ask is around reporting. What kind of reporting options do we have with the nDepth system?
Okay, so the nDepth and the InScan RIP that we saw here today, both pretty much any product that's configured with nDepth has a SQL database behind. So in the case of InScan RIP, we have information about every board that came through and was scanned, and then we also have information about all of the strips and pieces that were produced from those boards from the optimizer. So given that, you can do distribution reports on the incoming lumber. You can do load accumulators. So if you do have a case where you want to keep track of a load of material, or if you want to look at it by vendor and see what the width distributions, length distributions, grade distributions are, you can see that. And then on the outbound side, you can get, of course, yield reports about what was produced out of that material, and then sorting and bundle information. If you decide to pull strips after the rip saw and keep those in bundles, we can actually generate bundle reports and barcode tags and all those wonderful things. So we got a lot of reporting features, and those reports are not hard-coded. They're configurable. You actually, as a customer, have a tool to create your own reports if you wished. Okay?
Okay, very good. And then another question we get often is around accuracy. What can we expect?
Okay. Accuracy is really a function of the field of view that we have set on the nDepth. So if you looked at the InScan RIP here just a few minutes ago with the standoff we have there, which is right now about 40 inches roughly, maybe a little bit more, we have about a millimeter accuracy at 40 inches. Now, if you go down small or closer to the product, you have less field of view, but you get a higher resolution. So it depends on what your targets are. You can always, if you want to increase your resolution, you can use more sensors and have smaller fields of view. Okay?
Okay. And what kind of use cases can you tell us about related to the nDepth product line?
Okay, so we saw the one today for InScan RIP, but there's lots of others. Okay, so for example, one of the interesting applications of the nDepth sensor is that of panel inspection, especially pick and place operations. So since nDepth is not dependent on the color channel, since it has depth information, you're able to detect a panel, even if it's the same color, laying on top of one another, what the offsets are, and so forth and so on. So for vision-guided robotics, this is a very interesting sensor technology for those kind of pick-and-place applications. The other things that you can do with it is if you're producing flat pack, RTA, anything that you're having to pack in a box, nDepth has some very interesting tools to use in that mode because, again, it's not dependent just on color. It can see heights and how tall something is, and in addition to how wide and how long it is, and that's independent of the color channel. Okay?
Okay, thank you. And another question is, what kind of production speeds can I expect?
Okay, the nDepth sensor itself is capturing every 60th of a second, so 60 times a second. And that's the color plus the depth. So in the case of the InScan RIP scenario, we're able to process independent of length boards up to a rate of about 25 boards plus a minute in double-sided mode. So the system we showed the video on was actually scanning both sides of the board with one set of sensors, which was a very interesting condition, all top only. So about 25 plus boards a minute there. And if you're single-sided, you can go potentially a little faster, probably in the 30 plus, maybe a little bit higher, 35 plus range, okay? But in other inspections, it's really limited by the capture rate of the camera and what your inspection task is, okay?
Okay. And just a quick time check. We've got about 3 minutes left here. So anything else you would like to share related to this system?
Okay. Well, perhaps just to think about the nDepth sensor as being a tool that we use and potentially you could use as an end customer for very simple applications as well. So in its most simple form, the nDepth is a super photoelectric. So let's say I have an application where I want to be able to detect feeding into a machine if two things are overlapped, okay? With a traditional photoelectric, you couldn't do that. That would be very difficult. Since the nDepth is an area scan and also has the depth in that full area, you can easily detect those kind of overlaps, and you can interface the nDepth directly to a PLC. So it supports Ethernet IP for Allen Bradley, Profinet for Siemens, Beckhoff ADS, which is for the Beckhoff platform, and then Modbus TCP, which covers almost any other PLC that may be out there. So in addition to that, you have some outputs. It connects just like a photoelectric. You take an M12 cable, you screw it in, and we have two outputs that you can actually digitally connect to a PLC to give you an output. So you could say, I want to watch to see if in the area anywhere I get something that's taller than it should be and has a certain area, turn on an output or send a message to the PLC. So those are some of the things that you can do with nDepth independent of them being in our product line. So if you have an application where you want to integrate something, please call us and we'll talk about that, okay?
Okay, that helps. And then anything else you'd like to share about the panel shop here or AikenControls?
AikenControls in general. I started the original company in 1987. Our first products were targeted to the lumber yard, so we still sell those products, the LTS and the BFS. And if you didn't catch those live demos, please take a look at those products on the platform or on our website. And so we grew up in the wood industry. We've got a huge depth of experience there. So we're 30 plus years, and a lot of the folks here have been with us almost from the beginning. So we started out as Integrated Solutions, transitioned to a group called Control Logic, and then spun back out about 10 years ago into AikenControls. So we're with you. We got sawdust in our blood. So if you got an issue or a problem you're trying to solve, please contact us. And as Eddie alluded, we also are a full UL panel shop, 508A panel shop. So we do all of our electrical engineering and fabrication and software development and everything in-house. So we have a group of 10 here in North America and the U.S., and then we have an office in France and a group also in Germany. So we have a breadth of experience that we can bring to your problem. So thanks for stopping by today. We appreciate you joining us on IWF Connect. And if you got any questions for us, please feel free to reach us over the platform or at any time at info@aikencontrols.com. We'd be happy to set up a time to dive deeper into your application issues and problems that you're trying to solve and to do a customized demo for you. So thanks again, and have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you all. Have a great day.